Welcome to the Off Leash Podcast with Dr. Pete. I am your co-host, Molly Van Vranken, and we're so glad that you joined us for today's show. Remember, we're not here to say what you want to hear, but we're here to say what an advocate for the pet.
Yeah, that's what
rough
we
start
do.
this morning.
Okay.
We haven't done one of these in a while.
Okay.
But we are joined by a special guest today, Bob Emery. Say hi.
Hello.
Dr.
Bob Emery.
Bob Emery. That's correct.
How long have you been a vet for?
So this will be 30.
Get just a little closer to your mic for
34
me.
years.
34 years?
Yeah.
Crazy.
First job basically that I ever started at.
And you two used to work together, right?
Yes. Well, we're both stuck in the same job we got. We haven't moved. I mean, so Bob went to work at Dick Monroe Veterinary Clinic, and then as time went on, at one point in time, there were probably synergies in having a large animal and a small animal clinic together, but that kind of went away. And so then we told Bob, Bob's independent. I like to do a lot of stuff on his own. We knew he'd be successful if he went out on his own, which he was, and he is. And so that's kind of what happened. So he's gone out and done mostly large animal. When we started, we were mostly large animal, probably 70% large animal, 30% small animal, and both practices grew, but the small animal grew faster than the large animal. So
you don't see too many practices that do both.
Yeah, you do in certain parts of the country, but this isn't one of them. And you see that maybe out in Iowa, in places where there's
small
less.
Town.
Yeah, small towns. Yeah.
Go ahead. We have a little practice in Athens. They do everything.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Old school.
That's awesome.
But so Pete, very first time I met him, he my mom said I was interested in veterinary medicine. And Pete says, "Well, have him come down and volunteer." So I did, and Pete probably doesn't remember this. I'm not even sure if he's
free labor. Yeah.
Free labor, but very first.
I got free labor too.
Very first day, one of the veterinarians asked me to carry this Great Dane to the back. Do you remember this story?
No, I don't.
Anyway, I picked it up, and the dog went to bite me in the face.
Oh, boy.
A Great Dane. And I ducked my head, and it clamped down on the top of my head, and it gave me little stripes all the way up the top of my head. And I went to the back, and all the techs were fixing me up.
Oh, my goodness.
So the next day, I come back to volunteer, and everybody's looking like, what the heck are you doing here?
Yeah.
I guess you're going to make it. You're going to actually be a veterinarian.
Yeah.
I didn't think once about it, twice about it.
No.
Yeah. Same day we changed our insurance carrier.
Yeah.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But Bob was enthusiastic, to say the least, and so that and really in this business you have to be enthusiastic. You can't dread doing this. This if it isn't fun for you, you should probably do something else. And I think it's always been fun for Bob.
Yeah.
And he enjoys doing it. He enjoys learning new things.
It's a hard job. I know a lot of people want to be veterinarians when they grow up. I wanted to be a vet when I grew up, but then shadowing, it's a lot harder than you could ever imagine.
It's a disciplined job, but
It
it's
is.
an awesome job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's mentally taxing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
We get a few people who want to be in this business because they like dogs better than they like people, or they like horses better than they like people.
you're just dealing with people.
Well, you're still dealing with people, yeah. It's not like you get these dogs come in and they got a credit line of $10,000 and a credit card. It's you deal with the people, and the people are the ones that. So it's kind of a complicated thing. Although I'd have to tell you, I think the thing that I tell Molly every once in a while is that the people have changed over the years since you graduated. People have changed, but the pets are the same. The horses are the same. The cattle are the same. The dogs are the same. They're still pretty innocent individuals that need help, and so. That part of it probably will never change, even though everything else has.
Yep.
So just some advice for the two of you to give out to our listeners, maybe that want to be a veterinarian someday.
Any advice?
Any advice on if that's a determining factor of whether they're going to make it in the vet field or not?
Well, if you're lucky like Pete and I, and you find something that you just truly love, that's got to be number one. You got to just love it. Because it is hard, and you're going to go through a lot of difficult classes and nights on call and this and that, and it's not what everybody thinks it's cracked up. You got to love it to begin with.
Right.
If you love it, it's awesome.
Yeah, you have some difficult. I used to tell people that came into the practice brand new that, you're going to get into losing streaks where you can't get out of the way yourself for a whole day and a half or something like that, and that's the art form, kind of learning to accept success and then really learning to accept disappointment on the way some of your cases turn out. So sometimes you just are not given a winning hand. in veterinary medicine, you get a horse or you get a dog or you get a cat that the people would love to save it, and there's very little hope. And so I think that's one of the things I think with young people, it's like, I mean, every once in a while I used to joke a little bit. I don't know why this happens to me. I gave to the United Way this year. It seems like it doesn't seem appropriate that I should be dealt this kind of a hand, but it is what it is. And so, yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
All right, so we have this segment that we do, Old Dogs, New Tricks, where we kind of dive in. Normally it's with Dr. Pete, obviously, but something that you've learned recently in your practice that has helped you tremendously.
So to be totally honest, I mean, I've been doing this 34 years, and I feel like I'm just getting started. I feel like I'm just getting my foot in the water. And I've stumbled into some stuff. No one's really been my real mentor in what I'm doing right now, but I've had lots of different mentors. But the holistic stuff I do, I got into acupuncture and chiropractic way early, way before anyone accepted it. And now that's one of the most sought after things for these really high performance Olympic level horses. But maybe 5 years ago, some magical stuff started happening while I worked around the horse, things that did not make any sense to our Western brain. It's just like, this isn't possible. But so the energy work that I started doing, and it's just fascinating. And I don't really understand it, how it works, but it does. And it's really fun. Probably the biggest thing I've learned recently was when I started doing it, it exhausted me. I was so freaking tired, and I can work. I can physically work a long time and not get tired. I'm standing here doing nothing, and at the end of the day, I got to go home and take a nap. So probably the recent thing, I've been doing some training with a woman named Marty Spiegelman from San Francisco, and she's a shaman who's been initiated in 3 different continents.
Oh, wow.
And she says, Bob, don't use your energy to do this. It's good that you can feel it in your body, but don't use your energy. So she has me doing all these little exercises where I'm using earth energy or sun energy, but not my direct energy. And it's interesting. I'm not tired at the end of the day.
Good.
And so that's probably been my...
So because I remember when I brought my horses in to you to get chiropractic work done.
Right.
And I remember you did this thing where you kind of like put your hands on one of my horses and you were like, I'm just feeling his energy. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what the hell is he doing?
Yeah.
Explain that to me.
So I pretty much hit it from anyone I was working around until I got to be about 50. And then once I got over 50, I'm like, I just don't care. If they don't want to come see me, that's fine. I'll go ride my bike more and have some more fun. But it just, the opposite happened, and I really opened up with what's going on. And I don't have to put my hands on them anymore. I just stand there really quiet and still, and I kind of open my heart, or my heart chakra, or in South America they call it your mune, your heart. And you open your heart up to the horse, and you just stand there really quiet and you listen. And you're not listening with your 2% of your Western trained brain. You're listening with your kind of your subconscious, unconscious, whatever you want to call it, connection. And stuff comes to you when you're standing there like, oh man, this horse's sternum is really messed up, or it needs this or needs that. And that's just fascinating. And I just stand there and I just kind of feel the horse. A horse can actually feel your heart from 4 feet away. They know your intention. So if you come at them with love and I'm trying to help you, they understand it, and they'll let you do all kinds of things that you wouldn't think.
Energy is a crazy thing.
So can I tell my favorite joke?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, you can actually say anything on a podcast.
Yeah,
Bob.
you can say whatever you want.
Can say.
My wife told me I couldn't say anything this morning because she's with Bob's wife. Yeah,
we're not going to listen to her.
Okay,
you say whatever you want.
She's got a name, but we're not going to use it on this podcast.
A 7th grader told me this joke. So this is G. How come you can't trust an atom?
Why?
Because they make up everything. So, but if you think about it, you're made up of trillions of atoms, and every atom is 99.999% empty space. And what is actually kind of particle is still an energy vortex. So you are nothing but energy. And when you start thinking about it from that direction, you have, infinite amount more power to help, I think is. So that's my famous joke. But I'm into quantum physics, and I'm kind of a physics nerd. I was good at physics, and it's just fascinating. And the magical stuff I get to do with the horses. And I've shown it to engineers from NASA, because they're like, and they go, Bob, that's just physics, but we don't understand that yet. You know,
Right.
you don't really understand how vibration and energy and things flow back and forth. But you don't have to really understand it to do it completely. But
Oh, 100%.
yeah.
So my favorite Bob Emery story was not that many years ago. Actually, probably 15 years ago, something like that. We had a dog on Saturday morning came into us that had been hit by a car. Do you remember this, Bob?
Yeah, I think it was more like 25 years ago.
Was it? No, it was a while ago. Anyway, this dog was in tough shape. So we instituted, life-saving stuff, IV fluids, pain meds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The dog had a couple of fractures, and they need to be repaired. So we said, well, we'll just, control the pain for the weekend, and then we'll come in Monday or Tuesday and repair the fractures. Dr. Van Ryswick, he's the orthopedic guy down there. And this dog was so painful, it was not in any shape to have anything done. So we spent a whole week with that dog trying to get that dog's pain to go away. So we finally were like, well, we threw up our hands, and I said, why don't we try this? Why don't you have Bob come over, Dr. Emery, come over and do acupuncture or whatever he feels is suitable to do to this dog. So, and we knew how to get him over there. So we went out, 4 o'clock, we sent somebody out for a 6-pack and a beer. And we brought the 6-pack of beer, and then Bob stopped in after work, which is probably about 5:30. And the 6-pack was still there. And so we opened one, and Bob started doing his thing. And I'm watching him do this, and I'm thinking, oh, boy. At least we can tell the owners we tried every last thing we can think of to do to save their dog, so we drank the beer, and Bob drank more after doing the work than before doing the work, so that was good. That's always good.
Yeah.
And then we woke up the next day, went down to work, and here's this dog standing in a cage eating his breakfast. It was like, holy crap! Look at this. This can't be coincidental. This is real stuff going on here. So Bob knows we're in that minuscule group of people that probably doesn't understand it and probably too old to really go back to school and learn it. Although we have some young people at work that probably would be interested in doing that. But I think that's the most stark situation, and probably that's happened to you all the time, and you don't think much about it. But I thought a lot about it, and then when this dog died, and this has a happy ending and a bittersweet ending at the same time, in that the owner sent us a letter, like 10 years afterwards. The dog's probably 2 or 3 when this happened, and the dog, we fixed it, and it had some arthritis later in life, but it got along all right. Nice yellow lab. And sent us a letter thanking us for everything we did, and we reminded ourselves that Bob did the heavy lifting on that case. We just
nice job, Bob.
Yeah, nice job. Yeah. Anyway,
was this when you were doing the energy healing?
No, that was way before.
Way before, really? Yeah. So anyway, that was a great story. The sad part is that the dog died. He was 13 years old, I think, and so that's about how long labs live. So it got to live its entire life. But then shortly after, the owner died, and that was too bad too. And I felt bad about that. But you have these good feelings that this guy didn't want a dog; he wanted that dog, and he got to have that dog because you knew how to do what you knew how to do. And so otherwise, if this doesn't happen, then this doesn't happen, and this doesn't happen. So since Bob knew what he was doing and how to handle that, why? We got to let Ron do his thing, and he knew how to handle that. And then we gave the dog back to the owner, and he knew how to handle that. So it all worked out. It all worked out for the good. Yeah, it's a good, really feel good story.
Yeah.
Probably disappoints the listeners that we were drinking beer when we were doing this, but
you gotta enjoy every moment.
Yeah, you gotta enjoy every moment like that.
You don't know how long it's gonna last.
Yeah, we're drinking beer, and I usually drink. I usually drink beer shaking my head just because it tastes good, but I was watching Bob do all this stuff, and I'm drinking the beer, shaking my head. I don't know. But, you made a believer, and you single-handedly saved that dog. I got to give you a lot of credit.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I always tell everybody if I do 9 things really well, as good as anybody, I can be a complete quack on the 10th, and I'm really helping. I mean, it doesn't hurt the dog. But if you don't go out in left field and try this stuff, you'll never do it, because some people are afraid to try it.
Yeah.
And if it didn't work, I still did 9 things that really helped. And then some of these 10 things after a while, because we're vets, we're good at logic, math, physics, whatever. You sit there and go, holy crap, that actually works. And it's amazing. So the first thing that kind of blew me away was it was 2016, and I had this massage therapist fly down to Wellington to watch me work. And she's an unusual woman, very unusual, Cherokee Indian, all kinds of superpowers. Anyway, she's watching me work on this horse, and the horse is super sore. And I went over and I showed her how sore it was. And then I put 2 needles in, 2 spots that I really thought through where I should put those points. Put 2 needles in it, all the points are gone. And I said to her, April, isn't that amazing that 2 needles can totally change a horse? And she goes, no, Bob. She just looked at me deadpan. Because it wasn't those needles that did that. That was your energy that did that. And I'm like, bull crap. There's no freaking way. I worked really hard to learn this and know where to put them. And she goes, oh, no, that was your energy. So in Florida, no one watches me work. All they do is measure by how the horse performs. So you're in there alone. So the next stall, I walk in, horse just as sore as the one before. And I sat down on my bale, and I got into like a little meditation. You know, I went over the horse, and I thought my way through it like I was doing it, but I didn't touch the horse. And then I go over the horse, and I'm like, son of a gun, the points are gone. How did that? So I thought my thoughts had power. That's not what's going on. It's not my thoughts. It's nothing that I'm thinking about.
It's just the energy.
It's just opening up the energy to them, the intention that you have when you're doing it.
Yeah.
And so, that just blew my mind. And then I just been playing with it so much. And it just, I honestly, I think it's limitless what's possible. I'm not saying that I'm limitless. I mean, that I can get there. I'll go as far as I can. But it's just really amazing to see it. And it keeps, your job is like, it's not work, for me anymore at all. And I told the woman that I'm training with, I said, it's kind of just like play all day long. And she goes, no, you're not playing. She says, you're doing sacred play. So I kind of like that. So
I like that. So like I said, when I brought my horse in, I have ex-race horses. So they're, Wally's nuts.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That horse is nuts. And I was
most race horses are nuts.
And I was so anxious to take the horse into the vet because I was like, this is going to be such a freaking ordeal. And the horse is going to be rearing out of the trailer and prancing. And I think I took the horse in and it was prancing all over the place. And you did that where you came up and you're like, I'm just going to feel your horse's energy.
Yeah.
And I was like, good fucking luck.
Yeah.
This horse is not calming down for anything. And I remember you went over and you put your hands on him. And then within like 30, and I thought in my head, I was like, what the hell is he doing?
Yeah.
And then within 30 seconds, he was licking his lips.
And they dropped their head.
And they dropped their head. And they relaxed. And I was like,
they let you in. I use a little herbal oil on my hand. It's called Relief Form. A woman in Loveland, Colorado makes it. She's a shaman. She makes it on her own thing, and she gives it to me because I let her stay at my house in Florida when she's down there. But I'll use that a little bit, and it lets me in, and they recognize me by the odor, so they start to calm down as soon as they walk in the clinic. Most of the time,
you made me a believer.
And some don't like it, but usually after you work on them a few times, they enjoy it. And it's fascinating stuff.
And I'll never forget the trailer ride home because that horse has a hard time loading up in the trailer, and he stepped right up in the trailer and was head down, tied him up, and then got in, drove him home, and he was fine. Yeah, he was so calm the rest of the day. Yeah. Whatever you did.
Yeah. So the emotional stuff is crazy stuff too.
Yeah.
Now you still do a lot of dentistry, is that correct?
When I was on my own, I did 500 dentistries a year, and I did them from
horse
dentistries, and I love doing it, and I would do it from November to March. I mean, so I was out freezing myself to death, but I did it all during my slowest time of the year. But we still probably do about 500 horses a year, but we got 6 vets doing it. So I'm lucky to get to do a dentistry. The only time I'll do it is if I'm out on a farm and it's a regular farm that I do my performance work and they need dentals, or occasionally they'll let me do one in the clinic. I love doing them, and nobody did good dentistry when I started doing it. That pretty much overnight retired me from small animal.
Sure.
Yep. And
Well, explain to the listeners why we do dentals on horses. Because
a lot of people don't know.
So in the wild, they eat grass and they really grind their teeth from side to side, and they wear their teeth down. And horses' teeth are different. They erupt their entire life. And then when they get old, they fall out. But they're not static. It changes all the time. Well, we've really changed horses. We expect a lot out of them. They need a lot more calories, so we give them grain and things that they have to chomp on. And those teeth get razor sharp, and they'll actually start to cut the cheeks, and they cause some tremendous performance problems. And those are the good horses, And then you have the horses with bad occlusion that the teeth don't wear correctly, and then you get ginormous problems. So, I got into that, and it was fun. It was really fun. I went to my first equine meeting. I was out of school 5 years, and it was in Lexington. And at that point, I was doing everything in veterinary medicine. I didn't feel like I was doing anything to my ability. And I went to that equine meeting, and I drove home. I never turned the radio on, and I was so fired up about doing just horse work. And that's when I started to really morph into a horse vet. I didn't want to work on horses when I graduated from vet school.
Really?
My goal was, I love the small animal. I like the cattle. Pete would call me the farmer's friend.
You and Dr. Us. Bob and Gary, the farmer's friend.
But
Yeah.
Pete and Gary would send me out to vaccinate some killer horse. One was named Brandy.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I'd go out there and I'd show back to the clinic, and Gary and Pete would be looking at me with their eyes all open up like, how'd it go? I'm like,
Well,
what do you mean?
We wanted to see if you smiled, you had all your teeth. I think that's what we were kind of curious about.
Horse wanted to kill Pete and Gary. Horse just stood there and let me vaccinate and didn't even move. You know, it's like,
Horses don't like you.
No. Yeah, and
They
I think
read
a
your
lot
energy.
of it is, well, they may, and really one of the things that plays badly for me is that I'm taller than they are. So
a lot taller than anyone they've been around.
Yeah, and women own a lot of horses, and most of them are in the 5'4", 5'6" range, and so I'm in the foot and 2 inches above that or something like that. So when I walk up there, like, what the hell are they dragging in here today?
He carries a lot of divine masculine energy.
Yes.
Where I carry a lot of divine feminine energy.
I love that.
So they attach to my divine
Yes.
feminine. Now he's
They
become
do.
more feminine, and I've become more masculine.
Yeah,
as I got
there you
older,
go.
but
Yep.
Perfect world, you're balanced.
My Mullerian ducks finally started to
Yeah,
mature. Yep.
yeah.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
But so and you know the horse knows what you're thinking or feeling.
They do.
So and Pete's been hurt badly a few times, and you know those tapes are in there,
Yeah.
and so they sense it, and it just elevates.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree.
Yeah.
So do you use any of this energy work for dogs?
Yeah, I do. I'm not near as good with the energy work on the dogs. I can't visibly see the change when I do it, where you can visibly see the change on the horse, because the horses are just so reactive and so energetic compared to a dog.
Give me an example
Like-
of how you would see a reaction, like obviously
on a
for the
horse?
listeners.
For the horse, so I scan the acupuncture points, and I have a little tool that I go over try to put the exact same pressure on all these different points. And by the time you've looked at 100 different points on the horse, you have a very good idea where their issues are. And certain patterns, like a horse with a stomach ulcer, will have a very specific pattern, or a horse with EPM, which is a neurologic problem, they have a pattern, or sore hocks or sore ankles or feet. But you can go over the horse and you can see those patterns, and it's very obvious to the owner because they're standing there, unless they're on their phone or something, and that's not good. But if they're actually paying attention and present, they can see it. And then you either use needles or do the energy work or cranial sacral or applied kinesiology or whatever you want to call all these different things that I get to play with. And you can see it change instantly. And the horse drops head and chews and starts yawning, and
Licking.
then everybody around you starts yawning, and you know, but the dog's energy is much more like a human's, where so I can feel where the pain is, but I can't really show it, and I can't really see it change.
Okay.
But we don't advertise any of the dogs, but we do a lot of dogs, and my partner's doing it now too, Jason.
Nice.
And it's blown his mind.
Yeah.
And he just took the chiropractic course. And Jason is pretty conservative, great guy, but in the box thinker, very analytical. You know, everything fits into its little spot.
So the energy works hard for him.
So the chiropractic, you're in the world of gray the entire time, and it's totally out of his comfort zone. But the dairies have been drying up, and he needs something else to think about. So I got him to go to chiropractic school, but I didn't send him to the basic one. I sent him to the one where the guy does all the energy testing, where you're pushing on arms. It looks just batshit crazy. And only took me 18 years to learn to do it. But Jason comes back, and he looks at me, and he goes, I don't know how this stuff works, but it does. And then he picks up his cell phone, and he goes, I have no idea how this works, but I use it all the time. And I mean, I think that's a great analogy.
It is.
It's really good, and it's changed his life. He enjoys it. He's getting pretty busy at it.
And you get energized. I think when you, I think that sometimes we go to meetings and stuff. It's like, show me a new parlor trick.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I need to learn something to stay. Because most veterinarians are in. You know, some people get stale, but most of, you know, like Bob's kind of constantly reinventing himself, and so you will know stuff next year you didn't know this year.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
So, and that may make you stay in practice for a long time.
My wife, Candy, we were talking to a financial advisor years and years ago, and and the financial advisor saying, "When do you want to retire?" I said, "I want to be able to retire at 50." And then we got an argument because Candy wanted to have one more kid, and that was going to mess it up a little bit. But so 50 came and went a long time ago, and my wife, Candy's like, "When are you going to retire?" I'm like, "I'm never going to retire. I just want to be able to retire, if I have to." But
Sure.
and as long as I can do it, and doing the energy work is not a physical thing. Somebody that's 100 years old could do it probably better than somebody that's 40, just because energy is energy. It's just different. So, my hope is that as I age and can't pick up legs and crawl around on my bale and doing my stuff, that I can still really help these horses without hardly any physical work. And I've seen people do that, and it's what really convinced me to, because there's a lot of people out there that are very ungrounded, fairly flaky people that you wouldn't listen to any advice they have anyway.
Right.
But they have no logical, analytical brain, and they're floating around in space, and they actually can do it, but they're not somebody that you can trust or want to be associated with.
Right.
So I had to see two people that I really trusted and believed do it and have major changes in the horse before I could totally buy into it. I went to the class 3 times, the very first one, the one that my partner just went to, before I could do it. So I spent $12,000 before I could actually even do it. And my brain was just too busy.
Yeah.
And I was too worried what people thought, and now I kind of really
Don't
try
care.
not to care. And
Yeah.
it's like,
I wouldn't care. I'd say if it works, it works.
None of my business what other people think about me.
Because like I said, like when I brought my horse in, I was a little skeptical at
Yeah.
first. I'm like, what is he doing? And then once you did it, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
Yeah.
that was awesome.
Yeah. And that's been, how many years?
Oh gosh.
8, 10?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
So do you teach any classes on this or not
So,
really?
so that really, I've been doing these. I work with shamans, a fair number of them, and you always come out of these journeys that you do with them with like what's your purpose and stuff. And teaching has come up, like teaching, kind of what I do has come up a couple of times now, and I hadn't felt that in the past. My purpose is not to make wealthy people's horses move better. I mean, that's what I get to do, but it is so much fun to show people what we're doing and open their mind a little bit. So maybe that's more my purpose, is to show them what's possible and make them question things a little bit.
I want to know how deep this goes. Are you going to like ayahuasca retreats?
So the shaman I work with in Florida is a plant medicine doctor. She's also a chiropractor.
Okay.
She got out of school. She taught dyslexic kids. She owned a gym. She's a plant medicine doctor, shaman, chiropractor. She's been working with people for 42 years, and she does these retreats. And it's not ayahuasca, but there's plant medicine involved, definitely.
Okay.
But anyway, she's like, "Bob, you're like 95% of the way there to do ayahuasca." He says, "But she doesn't want me to do it until I'm 100%. A lot of people that go do ayahuasca.
Do you know what ayahuasca is?
No.
Oh, ayahuasca.
You go out in the wilderness and you trip balls for like 3 days.
No, it's more like 12 hours. But so most of the people that do it now are drug addicts or have really bad things that they're trying to break in it, and it helps. But you don't want to be with those people when you're doing this, because that energy is around you, and there are some really dark people that play with this.
You have to be in a very good state of mind to do it.
Because you can just, and you get violently ill for a couple hours before this happens, and then
It purges your body.
and then you
Have like a spiritual awakening.
It may be awakening, but you see the connections in everything, and you basically your ego dies, so you have no ego when you're in this thing, and you are just you, and you might be. It's wherever you can go, and it's more real than us sitting here right now. It's insane. So
I want to do it so bad, but it scares the shit out of me.
It should scare it. And when you do it, you need to do it in a safe place with real professionals, with a good group of people. And so if the opportunity came up like this winter, I'll do it.
Yeah.
If it happens. But so I haven't done ayahuasca, and I haven't done DMT. DMT is the toad, which is crazy.
I've heard.
It only lasts 5 to 15 minutes, but the people think they've been in there for days, and it's called the God chemical. And when you do that, you are connected to everything. And Mike Tyson, if you ever listen to Mike talk, it has been
He's done it.
amazing thing to watch him transform. And the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. It's another one that was that, and then Joe Rogan is another one. And then Joe Rogan's talking, and he goes, I know thousands of people that are incredibly successful in business, CEOs of everything. They're all enthusiasts. They've all done it. And it's unfortunate it's illegal to do that.
Yeah, you have to go to like Brazil or Mexico
or you can go to a church
Peru.
That's their kind of their religion.
Yeah.
Like there's one 20 miles from where I live in Florida, so it's real easy if I did want to do it.
Really?
But where was I going with this?
The outcome of it.
Yeah, it changes people. It
Yeah.
really gets rid of your ego, and it's after you've done it, you look at flowers differently. I can't kill I can't kill a spider. I mean, it's really crazy. You just kind of get like everything is more beautiful, and it just opens your heart. And the coolest thing is, it opens my heart more, and it made me more powerful while I was working on the horses. The horses knew it instantly, and then just crazy stuff starts happening. And so I've gone into that, and I'm a guy. I mean, I was as clean. Pete knows this. I mean, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, and I never smoked pot. I mean, I was like the cleanest kid ever. Where I was going to go with this is it would be amazing if people could get like a degree or a professional could have access to this and put people through these things, because there would be no more. And
Right.
people would just get along, because you can't hate people after you've kind of gone through that.
Yeah.
So
That's what I've read.
Yeah.
I've read all about it, but I'm just too scared to do it.
It can be a horrible experience. I made a mistake. Not a mistake, but I wanted to kill my ego in one.
Yeah.
And
If you're not in that right mindset, it's not.
The shaman goes, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay." But for 3 hours, I was like in quicksand, fighting as hard as I could to get out. It was the most miserable 3 hours. But then I let go, and I died, and I just kind of floated up. It's just, yeah, it's kind of.
Isn't that technically what it is? Like a rebirth.
Rebirth, killing your ego. Your ego is what, and Pete knows about this. And Pete's ego was pretty enormous when he was young, and it's kind of.
What do you mean? It still is.
No, I think Pete understands his ego, and he's become.
It takes you a long time to understand who you are and what you are. Yeah, I mean, and then.
He knows he's a cool guy.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
But I cringe every once in a while when I think of things I've done and said. My kid went to college and he came back and he says, "Dad, I don't think you'd be in college today if you were, if you did all
the same shit that you did."
Same stuff you did." And they said, "Yeah, I don't doubt you're right, boy." And
What do you mean? You can't throw bricks through strip club windows anymore?
No, that wasn't that. It was actually a big jar of Amway wax. I'm not a brick guy.
Yeah.
He's a wax guy.
I'm a wax guy.
So much more class.
Yeah. See,
But the cool
geez.
thing about Pete, and I didn't understand it, is I would watch all these veterinarians, very analytical. This means this means that, and Pete would look at something, and he used his intuition always, always. So he's not using his 2% of his analytical brain. He's using his heart and his gut instinct, and he always has. With business, these ideas come to him. Not afraid to try them.
He does, yeah.
And where those ideas come from, it's because he's open and he sees an opportunity. It comes to him. Probably doesn't really plan it, and it just happens.
It does. Normally, everything he touches turns to gold.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you got to go. Yeah, not everything. Yeah, but you have to look at kind of thing.
Business-wise.
You got to look at
daughter.
things and say, well, we can try this. If it doesn't work, we don't have to do it forever.
Right.
It's not for perpetuity. It's just for let's see if it works. Yeah. And I mean, it's just like coming down and doing acupuncture on that dog. We've tried everything else. We got to keep going. And that was the intuitive part of that. Intuitively, if we don't do something to do this, and you intervened.
Did you know Jim Frost? Did you know him, the pony man in town?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Jim had a little pony brought into the
Is it
clinic.
Frost?
I'm probably getting it wrong. He's been passed away a little while.
Oh, he lived out on Golden.
Just
Had a place on
wonderful guy,
Golden.
smoked a really good cherry pipe. Smelled good. Anyway, he came in with a little pony that was sick, and it had hypertrophic osteodystrophy, which is
really?
the only time I've seen it, where you lay
What is it?
You have usually a space-occupying mass in your chest or your abdomen, and it makes your bone lay extra bone down on your whole body. And I did everything I could for this freaking pony. I had antibiotics. I consulted with everybody, and he's just going down the tubes every week. And it's when I was taking the acupuncture course. And finally he comes in. He's got white mucous membranes, heart rate of almost 100. Normal's like 25. And I said, "Jim, I think that this is probably it." and he did not want to say goodbye to this pony. And I said to him, I says, I've done everything that I know possible except acupuncture. And he goes, well, heaven's sakes, Bob, do acupuncture on this pony. So I
save its life.
And let's bracket this and tell you that this guy was old. He had to have been.
Yeah, he's probably 80s then.
Yeah, probably 80s. So
damn it, Bob, do your acupuncture.
He said, for heaven's sakes, and it was busier in hell in the clinic. I had horses all over the place. I didn't have time to stand there and do this. But anyway, so I have these metal needles, and I dreamt up this thing to crank up their immune system and move energy and get rid of phlegm and this and that. And anyway, and there's something called moxibustion, which you light it on fire, and it smells like pot to a non-pot smoker, but it does. And you hold these little lit fires over all the needles. So I had Jim, I said, well, I don't have time to do this, but I can keep Jim busy. So I had his pony over here, and I put in like 15 or 20 needles, and I told him just go around the horse and put the heat on all these spots. And I left it and went home. And he called back the next day, and I'm sure Frosty had died. And he goes, Bob, Frosty's eating today, and I think the legs are down a little bit. I said, no way. Anyway, I did them every week for maybe 10 weeks, made full recovery.
What?
Blew my mind. I mean,
well,
even,
and that's even hard for for most of us to take because HPO is this really unusual. You don't see
hardly
just
ever see it.
Yeah, hardly ever see it. You might see one at the clinic. Yeah. We had a new graduate came in, and her second day she got one of those.
Wow.
And we she didn't know what it was, and Ron showed her. Here's the picture in the book, and this is your dog, and it's the same stuff. Yeah. And but we didn't do anything like that. I mean, but it's a tumor. In fact, it's usually a lung tumor.
Yeah, it can be an abdominal abscess too.
Really?
So I mean, it can. It's some sort of space occupying mass in your chest or abdomen.
Okay, so I have another question. Yeah. When you walked in, you saw my book over there, and you said you manifest.
Yeah.
How much of what you do is manifestation?
So I didn't know anything about manifestation or anything, but I'm kind of a frustrated athlete. I never really got to go as far as I wanted to in college. I got focused in on getting into vet school and getting through it, but
can't do everything.
No, but one of my buddies, Mike Wood, owns a bike shop down here. He says, "Hey, you want to start running in the morning?" And what time? Like 5:30. I'm like, okay. So anyway, I would get up at 5:30 and we'd run. We'd run for half an hour to an hour, and I come home and it's 6:30, right? Cold, freezing, and I'd cuddle up with my cup of coffee in my recliner chair, and I didn't have to do anything for an hour, and I'd just sit quiet and sip on my coffee. And if I had a hard case, I'd go through it in my head. But I mean, I could really get into some amazing spaces. I would get, we call them downloads now, but I would just say creative ideas, when I was sitting there, and I would put stuff out there. Like, I really would desire to have this, and I'm not being greedy or anything. It's not like I'm not asking for $1 million or anything like this, but like I would really like to be able to do this or that or have some outcome. And son of a gun, over 20 years, every single thing I put out there has come back to me. Maybe not right away, but eventually. And then I get this book, 369.
So you've read that book?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
And Tesla came up with 369, and he said if you can understand the numbers 369, then you can understand, I believe, I'm not sure how he says it, but you can understand the universe. So it's fascinating. So I've been manifesting this stuff for a long time. And then I told the gal in California that I'm working with, he says, yeah, I really love to meditate. And she says, well, what do you do? Because she's not into meditation. She's into being in this precision consciousness all the time. So you don't have to sit quiet for weeks in a freaking cave. She said, you need to do this. But anyway, so I described what I do. And she goes, you're not meditating, you're visioning. You're doing visioning work, which, you kind of put it out there. But, and if you have a high enough vibration yourself, and you put out something that is equal to that vibration, it comes back to you.
It does.
Now, if you're a piece of crap loser, it's not coming back. But if you are a very benevolent, loving, kind, amazing person, that stuff will come back to you at some point in time.
Exactly.
And I don't know, everything. I can't think of something that hasn't come back to me.
I do my meditation manifestation every week.
Yeah. Do you know Joe Dispenza? Do you listen to him?
A little bit, yeah.
So his first book I listened to or read.
I haven't read his books, but
I listened to his book. I was driving from Madison, Wisconsin to Saginaw, Saugatuck. Anyway, it was supposed to be 4.5 hour drive, and I got stuck in Chicago traffic. It was an 11-hour drive, and my book was 11 hours long. And I finally got to my destination, and I had like 10 minutes to go, and I was ticked off because I sat in the driveway and listened to the rest of the book. I was in the zone the entire time. But
That's
you know,
awesome.
Joe is all about, he gets out of the religious part of it, which is good. He just calls them energy centers, but he really gets into how powerful your mind is and how you can change your own genetic makeup. When we went to vet school, you had a gene and it made this protein. And that's what it did. But now they realize through epigenetics that this gene can be expressed 3,000 different ways depending on what it's exposed to. And if it's exposed to dark thoughts, maybe chemicals or pollution or bad things, it doesn't express the same thing. But it can actually change it and express positive things, and it can change your life. You can change the way you are. But yeah, he's pretty cool guy. Now he's become very popular, and he almost sounds like a evangelical preacher a little bit. But originally, when I started listening to him about 10 years ago, he was really common. I listened to his tapes. His are good.
That's awesome.
You ever listen to his tapes?
No, I haven't.
So
I do more of like the guided meditation.
So his is a guided one. It's called The Placebo Effect.
Okay.
That's a good one. It's like 45 minutes long. And then the other one is the energy centers, blessings of the energy centers. So you go through your energy centers and you put it out there. And I don't care. I mean, if you don't feel good when you start it, you feel so much
amazing
better
when you're done. Yeah.
And, you know, I'm really good at just putting myself out in nowhere. I'm in like dark space, and it's gotten very complicated, my little way of manifesting things. I have like a pyramid that I put things on, and I spin it up there, and then it comes back to me. And it's got like 1,000 things on it, you know. So
I love that.
But that's kind of crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you could manifest, like when you're trying to obviously heal an animal or a horse or a dog, putting that intention out there.
Yeah, I think it's all the same. I think it's all the same stuff. Yeah.
A lot of people call it the placebo effect of like if you just believe it. I think people in the science community call it the placebo effect.
So shamans say they believe it and then they see it from South America. So Westerners say, show me and then I'll believe it. It's the opposite way. So they can speak it into existence is what they believe, where Westerners, like in a kid growing up in a shamanistic community, the elders' responsibility is to find out what they are, like what is their being, and it's their responsibility to nurture that. In Western medicine, you grow up and then you go to college and then you become something. And if you're lucky, Pete and I got into the right thing. But so many people aren't. They're so miserable. You really go to these stores and look at these poor people. They're just
people with low vibrations.
they just look so unhappy.
And just for the record, we didn't know we were going to like it the day we got out of school. I mean, when you got out of school and you passed your boards, it's like, well, this is a hell of a lot of work. I hope this, and he didn't say, and I don't think I ever said, I hope this pays off. I hope this is what I hope this is, you know, and then I hope this turns into something, and I'm getting clients, and you probably have the same thing. I'm getting clients all the time. But when are you going to quit? You know, it's like
you guys are so freaking lucky that you wake up and you love what you do.
And I told him, I said, you know, if I came in here for 8 or 9 days in a row and I hated it every time I came in here, I would quit doing it. But it doesn't happen. I have days where I get my ass kicked, and you know, and I go home and, like you say, I take a nap, but I wake up the next day and I try to forget it, and not forget it, but understand that there's other things that need help today that are different than the things yesterday, and move on. And I think that's the way. Did you wonder when we got out of school, is this going to be fun, or is this going to be drudgery, or what the hell is that going to happen?
I never thought of it, is it going to be fun? I knew it was the right thing for me. You know, just like, I mean, there's nothing better than a freaking dog. I mean, really, if we could just be as good as our dog, it would be a beautiful country or world. Yeah.
Most of our dogs.
There's a couple ornery ones, but
I was just having dinner last night with John. John was our old marketing advisor, and he was saying to me, he was like, "Well, did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up?" And I was like, "No, I had no idea." And I was like, "I knew that my passion was animals, and I love helping animals." And I shadowed him for 2-3 years every summer. And I could not do it. I would go home every day, and I was so upset.
But that was so valuable. You learn. You got to try it and know that, okay, that's not what I want, but I want to zig and zag.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know how you guys do it. How you go home, and I mean, obviously, because you're dealing with a lot of death and a lot of sickness and a lot of the not good parts of having pets.
Yeah, I actually don't. I was going to go to medical school. That was my initial thing that I thought I should do, because the things I was good at, I could do it. And then my grandmother's in the hospital, and I spent a day in the hospital. And I never realized how sensitive I am to all the juju going around me. I felt terrible in the hospital. All these sick and miserable people. And you put a horse with like laminitis or founder, I don't even want to be close to it. It makes me feel horrible. And sick dogs, same sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I've kind of evolved into all I do is make them feel better.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I don't have to deal with the death and
Right.
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
And even the euthanasia part, that's what
God,
people.
that's so sad.
No, well, it is. It isn't.
No,
It isn't. It's,
I feel
Yeah.
Do you know what my first euthanasia was? Do you remember?
No.
You were like, Molly, I need you to go in this room. And it was this lady who had a golden retriever. And she said it was her son's dog who died overseas.
Sure. Well,
And I was like,
but you have to remember. So
I couldn't do it.
so dogs and really for that matter, I don't think horses or cats or a lot of our stuff die from strokes and heart attacks. That's what people die from. So they go till they have systems failure, and then when you get to the systems failure part, then you have to make the decision. And what Bob and I are hired to do is think with our head and not with our heart. But the owners are thinking with their heart. So I always tell people afterwards, I said, honestly, I know you think that the best thing you ever did for your dog is when you took him for that really long weekend to South Haven and he was in Lake Michigan and stuff. I said, the kindest thing you ever did was when your dog got to be in the state that he or she was in today, and you took responsibility and humanely euthanized him. And I think that's so. And I think you would agree about that.
Molly, with euthanasia, and I don't think I've ever euthanized something that didn't really need to be euthanized. I feel better after it's done. I feel lifted. Yeah, it's kind of an odd.
Yeah,
but I
See?
don't feel bad.
And I'm looking at it from the client's perspective of like, oh my God, if that was my dog, I could never.
One of my clients came in and said, every time you euthanize something, then it's like you're putting a pebble in your pocket, and eventually she didn't say your pants would fall off, but eventually, you would be burdened down with all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I don't feel that way. I said, and then she kind of went on to give me a lecture about veterinarians committing suicide and stuff. And I said, and I've told people that before because they'll read that veterinarians are thinking about committing suicide. And this is the part you won't like, but I said, well, have you ever thought about killing yourself? And I said, well, I've thought about killing a lot of people, but never myself. I've never been on the list. And I said, so that's the dark part. That's the dark part. Sorry, but I said, I've thought about killing a lot of people, but never myself. I've never been on the list. But in the end, I mean, we're put here to do what we're put here to do. And we're not going to martyrize ourselves. We're just going to do what we're supposed to do.
Exactly.
And we do use our heart to do the right things and comfort people when this happens and everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing is like, and try to make that as easy for the dog or the cat or the horse and themselves. And,
I just couldn't do it. I couldn't.
So another thing you should watch, because we were talking about plant medicine, is called Fantastic Fungi. Have you ever watched that?
No.
So
You're giving me so many good things to research.
So Fantastic Fungi is Paul Stamets. He's the big fungus guy out on the West Coast in Oregon or Washington.
Okay.
And he does all kinds of crazy things with fungus. He made fungus that will kill mites, your termites, and just fascinating all the stuff and things that will help treat cancer. But he's also really understands the psychedelic part of it. So I watched his thing, and it's just fascinating to see how fungus communicate under the ground. It's like a huge neural network of everything is connected. It's way more than the internet, and how incredibly intelligent the fungus is when they are doing problems and that sort of thing. But what he did during that thing is they took a bunch of terminally ill people that were going to die. They had terminally ill stuff, and they put them through a guided professional journey with psilocybin, and all of them said the same thing when they came back. They go, I don't fear death anymore. And I watched it the first time, and it's no big deal. But after I'd actually done a journey, then I watched it again, and I listened to those terminally ill people say that, and I was like, good grief, that is exactly how I feel. And I got teary-eyed. It was really like, wow. So, I mean, it gets, when you're doing the energy work, you can't not really get in the spiritual realm of everything. And that, I mean, we're here for a blink. I mean,
we are.
And you better enjoy it because, this can be heaven or this can be hell. It is whatever you make out of it.
It is exactly what you make out of it.
And, if you don't think that way and enjoy it because, and you just feel like you get recycled over and over and over and over until you figure it out,
Exactly.
Pete and I are old souls.
Yeah. Well, you've been talking about energy, and you got to pick out a rock and roll song today,
Oh,
so
yeah.
you can share that with us today.
Yeah,
Yes.
my wife said the PG version
The PG.
or G version.
The pregnant version.
Yeah, that's it. So do
All
you want
right.
the song?
Yeah, go ahead and talk
So
about it.
yeah, do you want like the background? So this is the song.
Yeah.
I love AC/DC.
Yeah, my workout music. So do I talk while it's going?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Talk while it's going.
So,
It's got energy.
So,
It does have good
one of the
energy.
biggest energetic things that's happened to me is I was camping in Estes Park, Colorado,
I love Estes Park.
and we're in primitive camping.
Okay.
And I'm with my best friend, and we're driving around here, and I say, Kurt, stop. 2 girls camping in this campsite. And Kurt's pretty negative, and I'm kind of not. So we get out of the truck, and I said, listen, this is a girl campsite. And I'm going on, and I'm rattling off 15 or 20 reasons why there's 2 girls camping here. And everything I said, he would have a negative to it.
Like?
Like, look at that tablecloth. Girls, guys aren't putting a tablecloth on the frickin', table. Look at those shoes. Those are little shoes over there. Those aren't guy shoes, and look at that truck. That's a girl truck. And look at all their freaking food. Guys, we got Cheerios, okay? And anyway, they were in the tent listening to us. And my wife Candy was in there, and we've been married 35 years now.
Yeah.
And she's like, how in the hell does this guy know every single thing about us? So anyway, we set up our camp next to him. They were still in the tent. And one girl walks out, and she's not my type. She's busty and she's a big girl. But anyway, she's really not my type. It's still the PG version.
Yeah, this is PG.
Anyway, and then Candy steps out, and she's long and lean and athletic looking.
And Bob's like, that's my type.
Oh my God, the vibration! I didn't know what I was feeling, but I freaking almost passed out. I mean, every hair on my body stood up, and my heart, it's like, boom. And it's the same sort of thing I feel when I get real truths now, and I've learned to recognize it. And but that's how we met, and we had the greatest week in the world. And I called her the first day of vet school, and I said, you should come out and visit. And she said, when? I'm like, oh my God, she's gonna come visit me, because I couldn't afford $450 plane trip she's from LA.
Right.
Or no, she's from San Diego, excuse me. Anyway, she came out to visit, and I'm 22, and she's older. She's 31. She's a pretty experienced woman. I'm this little innocent Midwestern boy, and she's this wild, crazy California girl. And anyway, this song comes in on the bar, and I'm sitting there, and I've had a few beers, and she screams it and dances it and knows every single word. And I'm just sitting there with my eyes and mouth open, like, oh my gosh, what do I have here? And so that's that song.
I love that.
That's where.
He said, I'm just an innocent Midwestern boy.
Yeah, I was pretty.
Was he?
It's his story. Yeah. It's his story.
Yeah, I grew up, Pete grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I was in the 80s. So when I was going through all that.
He was not an innocent Midwestern boy.
No. Well, I was when I got out of high school. I was pretty innocent.
Yeah.
I got all.
And then it all went down.
Well, yeah.
Well,
My mother always had disclaimers with me that said, listen, we send him to school. When we send him to college, he was fine. This is what we got back.
Yeah. So yeah, things weren't like that when I graduated from high school. I mean,
No.
kind of recession, and AIDS was blowing up, and
That's
it
crazy.
was a very conservative time.
Yeah. Well, it only is kind of what it is, and we've reinvented ourselves. And on the way over here, we were talking about things that happened to us and everything. And I said, sometimes people, and I'll bet you've heard this before, that said, Bob, you've been really lucky. And it's like, I said, I have a couple of sayings. One of them's half inspiration, half perspiration, or it's the day that opportunity met preparation.
Yeah.
And so you prepared yourself, and now the opportunities present themselves. And so I think that's everything that good happens to you for a reason, because you prepared yourself. So you've done a good job with that. And I always like the fact that when I see you, I don't understand a lot of what you do, but you're enthusiastic about it. And I think that's 80% of your success is you're enthusiastic, and you can actually interpret. And just to give you some idea, he's doing this performance stuff. So, you're actually able to evaluate performance, because
Right.
a lot of times they're jumping a certain hurdle, or they're running in a circle
time.
for a certain amount of time. So you can do that, and that's when we do studies. Like we do arthritis studies and stuff, and you can't just say, yeah, dog feels a lot better. Well, tell me what this dog can do now that it couldn't do before.
Right.
And that's what you do.
Right.
Tell me what your horse can do now that it couldn't do before. And then it may eventually go back to not being able to do it, and then you have to fix it again probably. Is that correct or not?
Help them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we would agree with that.
And the cool thing about in veterinary medicine when it comes to lameness stuff, I mean, I'm as experienced and I have more equipment than probably anybody in the state. And I've been doing it for a long time. And I have analytical measurement devices that can measure how your horse is moving, measure the symmetry on it, and I can ultrasound, X-ray, do blocks and use all kinds of amazing things. And it's amazing what we have opportunity. Regenerative therapy, PRP, stem cells, all these different things that we can manage stuff with. So I have the best of what current technology has too. But then sometimes you can just go back and do some crazy stuff and it works. And a lot of my clients are like, why don't you do your thing first, Bob, and then we'll see.
Right.
And a lot of times I never come back and have to inject some of those horses or do this.
Sure.
Where 15 years ago, I would have injected a bunch of stuff.
And that's what the clients wanted when they came in. I want this hock injected. I want this knee injected. And you finally you have to get past that, letting clients decide what you're going to do or what you're not going to do. Yeah.
Right.
And for instance, I was always told in lectures, if you have a dog with otitis externa, you can give them antibiotics, but that antibiotic does not get into the ear. And so I always kind of took that as the truth, because I'd heard it 3 or 4 different times. But you know what? I've learned, like when they have Pseudomonas sometimes has a biofilm on it, hard to get at. So we'll use the topical stuff and the oral stuff, and guess what? It works at least twice as good. I mean, and everybody says it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work for you. It works for us. And that's what everybody says. Well, what about AI? And it's like, what about AI? Because AI is not going to be able to figure out things that haven't been published. Right. Because you and I have things in our brain that we haven't shared with anybody. Yeah. And we're not going to publish it because we ain't the publishing type.
Right.
And but we know it, and it is information, and it's out there, and we have it. And as long as it keeps our marbles about us, we'll retain it. And so AI is not going to answer all the questions, at least in our business. And I think we would both agree on that.
So one thing you said in the beginning of that is like they tell you it doesn't work. So when I was starting the chiropractic school, and I think I was making $38,000 a year.
Yeah, we were overpaying you.
Yeah, and the school is going to cost.
You're such a dick.
No.
He is, isn't he? You gotta love him though. But anyway,
I'm paid too.
Yeah,
free coffee. You got free coffee. There's all sorts of stuff he got. He hasn't telling you about. But go ahead.
So anyway, and my wife had a good job. She's a nurse, and but it was going to cost $10,000 to do this chiropractic. And I'm working for these conservative guys that are like, I'm not paying $10,000. I never asked. But I paid for it out of my own pocket. And I had 3 little kids and making $38,000 a year. I don't think I was just becoming partner, the partner time. And I knew in my heart it worked. But like the people at Michigan State, they're like, it is the biggest bunch of crap out there. You show me how you can move the spine of a 1,200-pound horse. It is hoo-ha. And the guy that gave me all that advice gave it to me right after I signed the check to go to the class. And he's
Were you rethinking it a little bit?
No, I didn't rethink it, but he's not going to send me anything. But anyway, a year later or 2 years later, he goes, I don't know what you guys are doing, but it's doing something. Myofascial this or that. And then he asked me, he goes, well, how many dollars a year are you doing? And I told him, and his freaking mouth dropped open. He's like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, yeah. I mean,
a lot of people pay a lot of money for that.
Right. Well, if it works, they'll pay a lot. They'll pay a lot of money for it if it works, but it's got to work.
He couldn't believe that I was doing that many horses. And, and I do way more horses now, but he was like blown away. And but it's good that I think the other thing that you said that was really good is you walked in the clinic. I love it. People are skeptical.
I tell them,
I think you should be very openly skeptical of what I'm going to do, and I'll try to tell you what I'm doing as I go. If I don't know them first time in. Now, when a person comes in with their horse, I actually put headphones on like these, so I don't have to talk to anyone, and I can 100% be present with the horse.
I mean, you can just see it in the horse. It's proofs in the pudding.
Yeah.
Like it's an obvious night and day difference. I love that.
So
I love the energy work.
So the horse, to me, has been my biggest teacher for all these years. Because no one, I've never gone to a class like, hey, do this and this will happen. It's like, it's kind of like, I started doing horses and nobody in the clinic really liked horses that much. So I had to kind of figure out things on my own. And
But we married women who liked horses. That was our big mistake.
Not me.
There.
She likes horses, but she didn't own them.
Yeah, your wife owns horses.
I stayed away from that.
Your wife's certified crazy.
No, she's certified crazy. I
think
told
I
her
probably have a lot in common with his wife.
once she gets up to 8 or 9 horses, I'd end up selling pencils out in front of Walmart. Yeah. Well, this will be something. I think this podcast will be something a lot of you may want to re-listen to, because I think Dr. Emery, our guest here, gave us a lot of good stuff today.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I would love to come do video work on you talking about the energy work at your clinic if you're interested.
We don't really do any marketing at the practice, and it gets dropped and it's behind. And
Well, you're busy enough, right?
Well, I got back from Florida this year, and my assistant, because they get on a list for me to see, and my assistant's amazing. Nicole's like oh my gosh. But anyway, she's all frustrated, and I've never seen her frustrated before. I said, what's the deal? And he goes, your clients are getting so angry at me. And I'm like, why? I says, because I can't get them in quick enough. And I said, well, how many people are on the list? I'm thinking like 10. There's 80 people with multiple horses on the list to get in. So, and there's endless work if I was willing to go do it, but I'm not anymore.
That's why we don't have to market. If you do your thing, if you do your thing, I know they always say build it and they will come, but that's in essence what really happens. If you learn what you're doing and you know how to do it, then people will find their way to it.
I just think it'd be interesting to go in there and film and just see you do it.
So to me, what would be not from a marketing like out there to get more people to come in, I think it would be really good to video in a way to show clients, to teach them a little bit, to maybe open their mind this much.
That's what we're all about, information.
So
information.
It just opens their mind a little bit for some other things. And you look at our freaking health system, it is so freaking jacked.
It is.
It is so screwed up.
So messed up.
And if people just ate right, slept right, exercised a little bit, and didn't get obese.
Things would get better.
I think that a lot of people don't spiritually connect either. It's just...
It is.
Like, I think that there's mental health, physical health, spiritual health. Yeah. And a lot of people never tap into the spiritual health part of it.
Yeah.
I think Bob and I both tell you when we were doing euthanasia on dogs, when you worked at our building and everything, that we got teary-eyed when things happened, and I always would think, oh, geez, I got to try not to cry because I'm supposed to be comforting to these people, and actually it was more comforting when I cried than when I didn't cry, you know. So and then maybe somebody would walk through the back door, one of our employees, and see me all teary-eyed and stuff. What happened to Pete today? You know, it's like nothing, just the same stuff that always happens to Pete. He went in and euthanized somebody's dog. You know, like you were in there one time.
Oh my God, I lost it.
Yeah, I know.
I could not.
But if I get teary-eyed like that, and I did, if you do a little thing afterwards, like go wash your hands and let it go, and then go to the next patient, and you are fully engaged with that next patient. And I forgot I even did it.
Yeah, you can't carry it from room to room to room to room all day. In fact, every once in a while we get a good ass chewing by somebody. They're mad about something, and it's like, okay, we got it all out. We talked about it, and we're going to move on and have more positive things happen later today.
So you know the difference between a really good tennis player and a like a world champion?
Tell me.
It's not their speed or their ability. It's their ability to forget what just happened. You know, they forget that they screwed up, and they just go at it full on. The next thing is the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it.
And not being callous about it by any means.
No.
I mean, you just put your heart into it, and it's over. You're done.
Because there's some people that I've worked with that just, and it's like that the rest of the day because they're just thinking, oh my gosh, the world's a gigantic shit sandwich. I'm just eating it a bite at a time, and you can't go from room to room with that sort of attitude.
Yeah,
you absolutely cannot. So, okay, well, we're gonna do a little outro music today.
Of course.
You had AC/DC. Yeah, but I guess that's named after direct current and alternate current.
Yeah.
It's an electrician's term, I think.
That's Tesla and Edison.
And you know who this is right here?
It's one of Pete's.
Yeah, one of my guys.
I liked all your music, but I don't have any idea.
Yeah.
Marvin Gaye.
Yep. Who's no longer with us, by the way.
I imagine.
We sure appreciate you guys listening along with us today, and we hope that we've been able to share some information that will help you love your animals as much as they love you. Don't forget, always treat the treatable and prevent the preventable, and we will catch you on the next one. Bob, thanks for joining us
Well,
today.
thanks for having me, Mom. It's so nice to see you.
We can probably start doing other things with Bob, like you say,
Yes.
doing the video and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, I might want to hire you to come and
Hell yeah.
to do it more from a
Okay.
No, we just want to come see what you do.
Yep.
That'd be badass.
more.
So we're looking for content, Bob, and you got
right.
content,
All right.
okay?
You got good
Okay,
content. I
okay.
love it. Interesting content.
Thanks for coming, Bob.
Thank you.
A lot
All
of
right.
fun.
Thanks, guys.